now I think we can go into like one of the big things, and I think the big thing that us as a company have been trying to push is shooter detection systems. And I think that that is one of the most important building sensors that you can integrate into a building. And hopefully, at some point it'll be just like a fire system. It's this sensor right here. We have our two ultrasonic microphones, and we have our two IR light detectors. So we can actually use two forms of verification, which I think is great. A lot of the other detectors out there don't have two methods. But it's just a 4-inch by 4-inch sensor, and our response time is great, and hopefully you never have an active shooting event, but preparing for it is one of the biggest keys that a company can do. So what is your take on the SDS?
SDS, first off, the roots are pretty impressive. Where it came from, why the technology was developed. There's a great story behind that. I'm probably going to stay away from that for the purposes of this, but there is a great story behind that. Encourage you to look into it. But that said, I know our CEO saw this product. I don't know exactly in what order these events occurred, but he saw this product. There's a company called Shooter Detection Systems. And he wanted to make this very available to the small business, medium business, make this technology a lot easier to access. And so that's why we acquired the company a handful of years ago, and we have essentially built out something called SDS, powered by Alarm.com. So like you said, we want to make this as commonplace as a smoke detector, something that, why wouldn't I have this product in my home, maybe not my home, but in my business? Makes a ton of sense. If something were to happen, I want the fastest possible response I can get to an event, to a shooting event, and get emergency services there, life-saving care, as quickly as possible.
And detection time, normally under a second, and then it's about 3 seconds that transmits to the monitoring station. Within normally 5 seconds, the police are dispatched to that exact location.
Not only that, but you're also going to have the benefit of video verification. So if you tie video in, Central Station could put eyes on the shooter, can pass over some more information, anything else that's pertinent, valuable to the responding authorities there.
Yep, and most times, sometimes the shooter will actually try and blend in to get out of the building. And now, as soon as you have the shot go off, the detector goes off, all the cameras are recording, we see exactly who did it, everybody knows what happened.
Correct. I mean, listen, today, ideally, you're going to catch that shooter before he approaches a property, before he actually gets in the property. What have you found? I mean, right now, I live in the Alarm.com bubble. I try to stay in tune with what's going on, get feedback from other partners. What have you found that's worked?
So I know a lot of school districts and a lot of things are actually implementing zero eyes. It's not really a hardware factor, but it is a server that's running, it's intaking their cameras, it's using the AI detection features to see if they have a weapon, and they also have military personnel, ex-police officers who are actually watching the feeds and saying, verifying that, okay, AI picked this image up, is it a true verification? They will go through it and do it, and that's an excellent thing, but now what I was told was a lot of the places now want the acoustic and the infrared signature, because if there is a false alarm or somebody is concealed carrying, you're not going to be able to see it. So if a gunshot does go off, this is going to be the detector that's going to save lives.
So you need a lot of resources, I'm assuming, for other products. If there is something that they can't quite identify, they're going to err on the side of caution.
Yes.
And so those resources in whatever complex or building you're at would have to be readily available. Listen, I've got 4 kids, school-age children, and to me, anytime there's a threat, whether it be, anytime they've got to hunker down in place, or I forget what they call it exactly, but
yeah, like a lockdown.
Yeah, a lockdown. Anytime they have a lockdown type of scenario, I am petrified, right? I'm scared. My heart's beating fast, and until I get the all clear on my phone, I'm very concerned. So SDS to me is paramount. I mean, you got a 99.9% effective rate, right? You're not going to have false alarms. For the most part, with this product, it has a proven track record as a sensor. in these type of applications. So I want something that works well as a parent, and being on the rep side of the product, to have something that works as well as this product does, puts me at ease talking to my partners about it. That said, most schools, most churches, houses of worship, wherever you deploy the product, any other product that is not going to have those resources available. And I'm assuming, being on the receiving end of monitoring that video feed, I would have to err on the side of caution for liability's sake. So anyhow, I'm going down a rabbit trail. You got it.
But it's a great product, and another thing with Zero Eyes is a lot of these companies cannot afford the video quality or the cameras that they need in order to make it work. And you have to look at cameras that are able to see. You normally need 8 megapixel cameras. If you're doing a transit or some of these bigger facilities, you may have to have 80, 90, 100 cameras, and at $2,500 a camera is normally what they're going to spec for a project like this. It's an incredible amount of money to spend, plus you're spending installation, software, Zero Eyes, and continuation of that, where something like this is, yes, it's a sensor. It basically just hibernates in the wall. That's on the wall, and until something happens, it just sits dormant.
All those analytics are run at the edge, quick response time. It puts you in a good spot to be able to get responses there, emergency responders there as quickly as possible. And I'll say, I guess I'm trying to think back to an event where I was in this position. But if ever there is a shot, I mean, there are some that assume that, hey, everyone's going to respond, pick up their phone, call 911. But when there's an emergency like that, if you're an untrained person, the response is generally, you're frozen. I mean, you got adrenaline pumping. You don't know what to do. I think it's called the bystander effect, where you assume someone else is going to do something. You're frozen in place, and this is why services like this are just critical.
And it's the denial. And in some of the presentations that we've seen about it, it's the humans are 60 seconds to 3 minutes to figure out what happened. Do we, run, fight, hide? Do we, hunker in place? What do we do? A gunshot just went off. The normal person hears it, it's loud, they don't know what's going on. And that's also to say, where did the gunshot happen? Because a lot of, when you're calling 911, where did it happen? Well, it could have been in the east wing, could have been in the west, area, it could have been in the yard. Nobody knows exactly where it happened. So with a, device like this that is named in a certain place, it says, it happened in the East Annex on floor 1. Now you're going to actually direct them to the building plans, and that's exactly where it happened. And we can send our forces right to there, automatically use automations through the Alarm.com platform to lock down specific areas, use video verification, and just tie everybody together in one, ecosystem, so it's easy for deployment of police and whoever else needs to be in the facility.
100%.
And mass notifications, too, is another thing that you can send all your notifications to the ranking officials that need it, which is also great because if you have, the head of a police department or head of SWAT, if you're a school, I think that's an excellent integration with them as well. And I know that we're trying to really drive this product because in our eyes, it's a cost-effective solution that, needs a cell connector, which is a, cellular modem that's, brought by Alarm.com. And, we can do up to 50 sensors on a powered-by system. So cost-effective, easy to monitor, just a great solution for any business to have.
You are looking at, you brought up some great points here with the amount of time it takes a person to respond once they've heard something. They're naturally in denial of an event. I had one partner and we were chatting. He's part of a school board. And they had boiled down, and it was not to be insensitive, certainly not careless with their words here, but they had boiled down every minute to X amount of lives, right? So in their mind, anything they could do to improve that response rate helped to save lives. And I think ultimately that's what this product's about is if there were an event, and listen, there's not a fire in every building, but every building needs smoke detectors. If there were an event, how quick would the response be? And how many lives can I save? I want to just maximize that number. So that's what Alarm.com does well. There are some statistics out there that does highlight that with the SDS sensor.
And, there's so many companies that are now integrating this product because it is small. It just takes a single, PoE cable. You attach it in and, put your cell connector in and it's there. And so just ease of use. We love it. It's a great product. I know that we have a couple upcoming, proposals that we're putting together for it and, get it out there.
In the event of a shooting, one nice thing about this product is because it's part of the Alarm.com ecosystem, it does not only trigger that video to go to the central station, but can also fire off sirens to raise awareness in the building, make sure that everyone knows that they need to vacate or that there's some type of emergency. So that is another aspect of the service, and I know we anticipate some access control integration over time as well with this particular product.
So looking at the SDS after action reports, I know they've had a couple FBI agents that have actually looked at this and, what actually was supposed to happen, what actually happened, and how SDS technology could have made a difference. So what was supposed to happen in the normal human world, quick reporting to the police, quick alerting to occupants, the run, hide, fight, and other training protocols initiated, and quick resolution of the incident. That's what is supposed to happen in an active shooter situation. What actually happens, and I know we touched on this before, was inability to call, the human-driven delays, the denial, lack of verification, panic and chaos, inaccurate information, location of the gunshots, time and location of the shooter, and a lot of that you just don't have. And then how this technology could have made a difference was instant detection. So there's no human in the loop that has to trigger that alarm. Verified alarm and instant notification to building occupants. That's what I was saying. That's why it's great to have a lot of users. We can branch out, have different emails in, and ultimately the worst day is a false alarm. And that's why with a device like this that has so much testing, so much behind it, you have a 99.9% uptime and, use case that the chances of you having a false alarm is very, very rare. So I think that that's another really core piece of this device is, they tested a lot of devices. I know the New York and New Jersey Port Authority did test a lot of devices, and a lot of them failed within 15 minutes. Pretty much from all the big, names out there. And this device was the one that lasted and didn't go off. And so I think that's a testament. They were banging, knocking, hitting, and this one was safe and, accurate at the end of the day.
Again, it has a long track record, and there's certainly examples out there. I was talking to one of our field service folks, and just getting his experience with deploying these units, seeing SWAT teams test, looking at their response to how the device itself responded, and the capability, how it responded to real events and how it didn't respond to false events. As you mentioned, I mean, there's a lot going on at the Port Authority.
Yeah.
A lot of noises, distractions, banging, and nail guns. In this particular instance, the one I'm thinking out in California, they could not get that SDS sensor to false with nail guns or pots and pans. It put them at ease that this sensor, when it triggers, it was something real.
Yep.
So we're not crying wolf. And that is important as well for authorities.
And because it does use that 2 layers of verification. So it may hear a bang, but if it doesn't see the IR imaging, the detector's not going to go off. So you need both of those to go off.
Probably the best example I have of that one, I think it was right around the time of John Wick 3, the latest.
The latest one.
I kind of enjoyed the John Wick. Anyhow.
I started to watch them. I
Okay.
just haven't finished them yet.
Fair enough. Well, this came out, there was a theater that was deploying these right around the time of that John Wick release. This thing is sitting right in the theater, the SDS sensor sitting right in the theater with John Wick in the background, and there were no false alarms. So just to prove the point, you've got 2 sensor technology. You've got a really, really loud bang from John Wick. If you've seen any of the movies, there's a
Yep.
lot of shooting. But the flash does not have any heat behind it. There's no IR flash.
Yep.
So it puts you in a good position to be able to differentiate, or put that sensor in a good position to be able to differentiate between real and false.
And it's another good thing to tell your customer, because if they are a movie theater, they can't worry about the system if something's going to happen. And you don't want to put the system on test if you were showing a movie, because that defeats the whole purpose of said system. So I think it's great, and it does cover, I think it covers a lot of ground. It's the majority of 40 feet in each direction, which is great. So it says, each sensor covers up to 2,500 square feet. So we recommend putting them in common areas, common hallways. You're not going to put one in every single room unless you have a budget for that. But, most common areas is where, a shooting would happen. So put them in all the common areas and they just operate.
Yep. So you do have 40 feet, 180 degrees, you nailed that. Does deliver, it does not actually need direct line of sight, which is a nice thing. So if you have a pole in the way, you can still hear and see that IR flash. And you can do ceiling mounted or wall mounted, which puts you in a good spot there.
Yes.
But you mentioned common areas and a starting point, unless you have the budget to do everything. And that's what generally we see partners do, is find those most common areas or those gathering areas where people would congregate, where an event would most likely happen, and deploy units there.
I'd rather get it in your building, get it working, get it in the common areas. Then if you say we really, want more, we can expand. Just another thing, like constant expansion, but get it in your building. It's cost effective enough that it can go, in a normal budget or anything else like that. And that's really nice. And I know that, there are grants available to religious institutions and schools and different things where, that's who we should be protecting most, is the schools, the religious institutions, especially kids. We were looking at a school, the other day, and, they have 8 buildings. And they have 2 on-site police officers and maybe, 15 or 20 guards. That's not a lot of people to cover, 3-4 million square feet of indoor space? If something goes off, how fast can you get there? And that's a concern.
I don't know what the typical set of resources are, security resources for a typical school, but that sounds like a lot more than the typical. 15, and so you have 17 folks on call there.
Around there. But that's a lot of square footage. It's 8 buildings.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So if you have to go to a different building, how fast can you get there? Where did it happen? Mm-hmm. Because that's where you're not in that building. I don't know that it was in this area or that area. So now you're driving people to, where did they go?
So I've got 17 resources at the school, and they need to get to that shooting as quickly as possible to that particular location, and that's where this will come in handy. So one thing that Alarm can do through the notifications engine is send a push, a text directly to those resources in very short order.
Yep.
So they know exactly where that shot came from and can respond. And they're the ones that are trained to respond, right? They're the ones who know where to go in the event something like that happens.
And that's another thing, the lockdown drills, your procedure to actually lock down a facility, I think is crucial when implementing a system like this, is how are we going to lock down effectively? What is everybody's definition of lockdown? Some people say, stay in place, shelter in place. Some are, run out of the building as fast as possible. And I think that's another thing we ran into, is nobody has a true contingency plan. You talk to one person, we're supposed to lock our doors, pull the shades down, shelter in place. And some others are like, I'm getting out of this building as fast as possible. And I'm like, the lockdown is ineffective if you're getting out of the building, because now you're getting out, so could the shooter. You could have another issue outside and not even know it because you're all trying to run out of,
Yeah, no, I think that the example you provided is spot on. I mean, the definition of a lockdown varies from, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, from person to person. What would the ideal scenario be? And I don't think I have the answer. And again, it will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I want to make sure that I know Alarm.com is focused on making sure you have the right set of resources to define the lockdown however you feel it's best for you in your particular situation. I think it can look different from scenario to scenario, but having those resources to be able to define that, what happens when, is where Alarm.com will shine. Maybe
Absolutely.
some recommendations, but
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think as a security contractor going into the institutions or going into religious institutions, you have to be able to prepare them a plan as well, because they may not have one, they may have never thought about it. I mean, I know at the school I attended, it was shelter in place. You go in, the door's locked, shades come down, that's where you are. It didn't matter if it was your classroom or not, that's where you went. And I think that ultimately kept a lot of people safe, because we did have close calls over the years of people just coming in a door, kids opening a door, didn't know that that person wasn't supposed to be there. Now we're letting somebody in who doesn't belong here. So when you have 1,000 people, it's not very easy to figure out who should be here and who should not, because kids are very trusting. So you have to really look at that and say, this is the correct procedure, but how do we implement it correctly so everybody understands?
Yes. Yeah, I've dealt with folks, shared some stories about schools and fire drills now and what those look like, and they're not what I remember
Yep.
when I was a kid, where they're not gathering in one place. So security in these scenarios are top of mind for those in charge and making these decisions. So, yeah, I think a lot more thought needs to be given to how we approach these, and again, looking at every scenario and making those recommendations and making sure we can deliver on those.
And I think implementing two sources, like if you are using Zero Eyes and have all the equipment and can do that, that's excellent. And I think it's a wonderful first layer of detection. And I think that this is an excellent secondary layer of detection that is not extremely costly, but able to be installed. And most of the time can be integrated with their existing system. So it's a win-win for everybody all the way around. So, that's just another great item that is offered. I know that we're really excited about it, and hopefully other dealers are starting to get onto it and offering it, because I know I spoke to, a good bit of them, and nobody really knew it existed, and I'm like, this is what you have to start selling. Your customers will love this, and it's a great thing.
Listen, you are definitely at the forefront. You think we've got a lot of this product out there for sure on the shooter detection enterprise side, but happy to say that Evergreen. How do you like to be referred to?
Evergreen Networking and Security.
Evergreen Networking and Security is at the leading edge of deploying this in, should I say, the Philadelphia market?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that where you're focused?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. For, schools and anything else. So, listen, that's what we love to be, is the forefront. Get in front of everybody and, try and sell this product. And I wouldn't sell a product I don't believe in. And that's, I remember when we first met, you just knocked on this door and it was by chance that I was in this building. But, super excited to get signed up. And, we're not the biggest account holder, but I know that we're moving in a direction that I think is wonderful for everybody, and pushing a device like this and pushing video and the AI solutions, and all of that is, where we want to be.